This is my toy frenzy. Come frenzy with me. Hi everybody. I'm here making a car activity organizer. At least that's what I'm calling it. This is my example one. It's the first one I made. So this straps around the headrest in the car. This hangs behind the seat in front of the seat that my kids are sitting in. This one I made for my daughter. It was the first one I made, so it's kind of my experimental one. My learning one. Yes, my rough draft. So I learned a few things and hopefully I'll make a few improvements on the next one, but I think it turned out really well. This is the perfect size for holding markers. So I've got markers and spots for coloring books. So this is what we're making, but I'm gonna make one for my son next. And I had a ton of scrap material, so this is all made out of scrap material. I didn't buy any material, which makes it cheaper and better. Yay! So set this one aside. And here, I already have all the material cut out to do my son's. All scrap material that I already had. I'll leave the measurements down below for all the different pockets that I make if you want to copy the sizes of the pockets, or you can just measure the things that you want to put in them and make your own size pockets. That's kind of what I did. I measured my kids' coloring books and toys and kind of figured out what size I wanted to make this. Okay, so the things that you will need are the material, bias tape. You don't really have to have the bias tape, but I think it makes for a nicer edge along the outside. So I'm putting bias tape around the outside of mine. Elastic. This is an 1/8 inch braided elastic. And Velcro. And this Velcro I had left over from another project, so it's kind of like the scrap material stuff I had. The only thing I've bought is the bias tape and the elastic for this whole project. So I'm going cheap and affordable. Alright, so let's get started. Something I forgot to show you, my daughters. So I made a huge pocket in the back that you can be for mom and dad's to keep stuff in, wet wipes, you know, all those fun travel things you need for the kids that just take up room. Or I also plan on keeping the iPad in there, or tablet. Plan on keeping the tablet in there, so it's not quite so accessible to them. My kids are only 3 and 5. But it's still accessible that we can grab it and they can still use it. Alright, now my daughter is very girly, so her thread and her bias tape are both pink. My son, surprisingly, actually picked out black bias tape, so I'm doing black thread with his as well. I thought he would go for like the green or the blue, but he went for black. So, but that's okay, it will look good. So first we're gonna take the outside, the back of it, the backing. And this is kind of a blue jean material that I had. My mother-in-law gave me a ton of scrap blue jean material. And so I already had this, and I had some big pieces, which was perfect for this. And so I was hoping that since it's the blue jean material, it's a little bit thicker. It's not a super thick blue jean. I was hoping that since it's a little bit more of a durable material, it would hold up better for the back of it. Make it a little more sturdy. So first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to sew along the bottom edge just to keep it together in place how I want it to be while I'm sewing stuff on, so I don't have to worry that it's sliding around. Let's get this out of the way. I'm not worrying about the edges. I'm keeping them all out because they're going to be covered by the bias tape. So I'm not worrying about the edges of this. Just going to start sewing everything onto it. But I don't want it sliding around, and because I'm doing a double layer, I'm making everything very thick and very durable since it's for kids. So I'm doing everything double layered. So since I'm doing it double layered and I don't want the 2 layers sliding around, I'm going to just sew the bottom edge together so it doesn't slide around on me. Now that we have that, I'm actually going to take this off. It's getting in my way more than it's helping. Alright, so first pocket I'm gonna do is the pockets for the coloring books. Well, it doesn't have to be coloring books. The pockets for the books. Okay, so I have 3 pockets and I'm gonna line them up like this. So we have 3 pockets for books or things of that nature. And what we're gonna do first is I'm gonna put the right sides together. Oh, this one's cut on a seam. One less side I've got to sew up. We're gonna put the right sides together and we're gonna sew up 3 sides of it. We're gonna leave the bottom open. So I've already got one side sewn up since it's on a seam. We're gonna sew along the top and the other side though. We're going to do that to all 3 pockets. Alright, so I just thought of a problem with the seam on the side. If I don't sew it up, if I don't sew this side, then it will make the other pockets measurements off from this one because I won't have that, what is this, 1/2 inch or so seam. So even though I cut it on a seam and it doesn't really need to be sewn, I'm going to sew it so that everything lines up right. This one was also cut on a seam, but it was cut at the top. So that will just make this pocket a little taller, which I don't mind. So I'm only going to sew up the 2 sides. Alright, now that I have them all 3 sewn up, we're going to turn them right side out. That corner turned really good. Now, that's you can see, I'm going to lay them all on top of each other just like I want them to be on the organizer. So I want all the bottoms to line up. Bottoms and sides need to line up. Looks pretty good. If you can't tell, I eyeball things. I don't make them just perfect. I just make them perfect enough to work. Okay. Now I've got that done. I'm gonna sew them together so they stay together on the bottom. And then we're gonna sew them onto our back. Keep all 3 of them nice and together. I've got them all sewn together here at the bottom. Now we're gonna take the back of the organizer push that out of the way again. Okay, we're going to take this and line this up just where we want it. I don't want it too close to the edge because we want to leave enough room for the bias tape to go along the edge of it. But we want to leave enough room for the pockets we have going over here. So that's about where I want it. So I'm going to stand up so I can see what I'm doing better. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna tuck the bottom under. I'm actually gonna flip the whole thing, keeping that bottom tucked right where I want it. And I'm gonna pin it down. Okay, I'm gonna check it one more time before I start sewing. Okay, so I have it just far enough from the top that a book can stick out of it and not hang over the top. So it's a nice enough amount of room there. So we're gonna flip it back and finish pinning it all the way across. And get it ready to sew down. Alright, now that we have it pinned across right where we want it, we're gonna sew it so we can flip it over and have the bottom edge all tucked, sewed under. This way. So, I've got these pockets, the bottom sewn down onto our backing. Onto our back. I don't know what you call this part. Into our canvas. Now, I ended up a little closer to top than I was thinking, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be exact. Now we're going to sew down the sides. So, we're just going to start at the top, actually. Because of the way they lay, it'd be easier to start at the bottom. So we're going to start at the bottom, we're going to go real close to the edge and just sew straight up. Sewing down all 3 pocket sides. Alright, so we have our first 3 pockets done. They ended up a little bit crooked on top. Came up a little higher on this side. That is okay. We have 3 pockets here though. Got good and sewn. Yep. No holes. Awesome. 3 pockets for books or coloring books or anything along that nature. Alright, actually I just realized I messed up. We're going to have to rip out a little bit of this. On this pocket I wanted to sew some holders for markers. And in order to do that, I don't want to sew it down all the pockets to where you can't get into them, so I needed to sew it on first. So, I should have written down the order better. Most sewing projects that I do, I end up ripping out something, at least one thing a project. Here's my one ripping outing. Hopefully my only one thing I've got to rip out. Now, ideally, I would have done this step we're about to do, which is make the little holder for the markers. And ideally, I would have done it before I sewed these 3 pockets together in the back. So, when they're still separate and you just have this one, I would do this step. Get out some of these little threads. So I'm gonna make, I didn't want a pocket, so most of the organizers that I saw online when I was looking at buying one, they didn't have any pockets to hold like the markers or the colored pencils or anything like that, and I wanted a pocket for each individual one. So the kids didn't have to try to dig through it and get the color they want. It was poking out and they could see it. So that's what we're gonna make here. We have these 2 strips. We're gonna sew them to make the holder for our markers. So we're gonna do just like we did with the pockets. We're gonna do this with all the pockets actually. We're gonna sew along 3 sides. The sides and top, both sides and the top. I'm just cutting these corners at a diagonal so that when I turn it right side out, it folds, turns out a little bit better. They still don't turn all that great. All right. So now we have our strip all sewn up. What we're going to do next is we are going to sew along the bottom, and we're going to do it I can't think of what it's called right now. It just like left my mind. We're going to do it at the widest stitch that we can so that we can gather it. And doing that stitch is called something, and I can't think of it. Anyway, so my machine does a 5.0 on the length of the stitches, and so I've got it up to the max. And we're going to sew that along this side, and then we're going to gather it up. But first I'm going to pin it a little because it's such a long strip. It gets a little out of control and hard to handle without pinning. So pin it up, make it a little bit easier to deal with. I'm going to trim a couple of these extra threads, get them out of my way so I can see what I'm doing better. Okay, so on this side, I'm going to knot the thread by pulling both sides, both strings, so that when it's gathered, well, it doesn't come out like that. Obviously, I didn't do it well. It's not wanting to knot. I always have the hardest time getting it to knot well for me. I think that side did it. Alright, so we're going to pull from this side. Alright, so we're going to gather it all up.
Sorry.
That's okay. Alright, so gather it all up just like so. All these fun little thread ends. Okay. Let's slide this out of the way. We're going to take this, that if you do in the right order is not already sewn onto here, but we're going to take this and we're going to pin it down. Okay, so I've got it gathered a little too much. And we want it fairly close to the bottom of the pocket, so that when we're done, there's lots of room for the marker to hang out of the top. So I'm going to pin it down here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and sew across here, so we can flip it up like this. And then we're going to sew, across here, and then we'll flip it up, and just like we did the pockets, we're going to sew down the side. And we're going to go back to a 2.5 inch length stitch. Okay, so now we have a very floppy pocket on here. So next we are going to sew down, after I cut that little string, we're going to sew down little strips for the markers to slide into. And I gathered it and made so much extra so that we could bunch it up so the markers would fit. Now, the way I did this for my daughters might change up a little. What I did was I took a marker. These are Color Wonder markers, because that is the only thing I'm letting my kids bring in the car. So I took the markers and I went like this, and I put a pin. So okay, and that's what I did. And then I came on this side and did it again. Alright, so actually, I'm just going to stick with this way. It worked well. So, just keep doing it until you get to the other end. Now I just eyeballed this, and so they're not all exactly even. So now I'm going to take my measuring tape, wherever I put it. There we go. I'm gonna look and see approximately how far apart most of them are. Let's see. That one is, what is that? About 5/8 or 2/3. An inch. Yeah. That one's more like 3/4. That one's almost a whole inch. So they're not all exact. So I'm going to go through and adjust them slightly. Most of them seem like they're close to the 2/3 mark. I have a chalk pencil. I'm actually going to take it and mark where I want these, so I don't have to keep remeasuring, picking up the measuring tape every single time. So right there. There. Maybe this is what I should have done to begin with. That makes it harder to tell how much of a bulge to make. So I guess the first step I did to figure out how much of a bulge to make for the markers. so they would fit in the slot. Now we're going to take the pin out, hold the material in place, slide it on in. Sorry, gotta see that I'm lining up with the needle with the chalk line. That's another benefit to drawing on it with the chalk pencil is when you take the pin out, you still have a little line there where you know where you need to put the needle. Alright, then I'm just going to sew down about halfway is all and leave the bottom baggy and loose. So we have them all sewn up. There's a couple that were a little bit snug in here. I got a little too snug, but that's okay, they still worked. This one was the one. It may be easier once it's all sewn up than me trying to hold it, but that one's a little bit snug. And then this one will have to be for pencil or chalk or something like that, because the markers don't fit in it. But those are our marker holders. And now that we have that all done, we can sew this pocket back to the rest. We are all done with those. We have our first 3 pockets and our marker holders all done. I missed a thread. So next we'll be doing the DS pocket that holds the DS and 3 DS games. So okay, this one I cut on a seam, so we're not going to sew across the top, we'll just sew up the 2 sides, just like the other pockets. Put the right sides together. Alright, now I'm going to sew across the bottom with that stitch that I can't think of the name of still. I want to call it a basting stitch. But we're going to make the length as long as possible because we're going to end up gathering this pocket so there's plenty of room in there for the DS to fit because it's not a flat object. So okay, but before we gather this, we are going to sew a little pocket on the front of it that will hold 3 DS games. And we're going to do that with the green. So we're going to sew it together too, and I can't tell what's the right side or wrong side to this. We're going to assume the wrong sides were together and put the right sides together. I don't think it'll matter too much with this material. Alright, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to sew up 3 sides. Alright, so now that we have that done, we're going to sew it onto here. Right in the center, widthwise, a little closer to the bottom. height-wise, if that makes sense. So when we fold it up, it doesn't go above the top. So, tried to get it pretty well centered. It's close enough. Alright, let's sew that on. I'm gonna do it fairly close to the side there. Alright, I need this a little closer to me. Okay. Now we're gonna fold it up and sew up the sides. To make our little pockets. I'm going to measure this and divide it up by 3, so it's about 4.5 inches. So each little pocket should be 1.5 inches. So I'm going to put my pins in to sew it at 1.5 inches. Okay. I'm going to take my chalk pencil. I really liked how easy it makes it to know exactly where some marks are after you pull out the pen to sew. Alright, perfect. Okay, now I'm going to sew just on the green part of the pocket straight down at that 1.5 inch mark. Alright, my chair is not tall enough. I can't really see it very well. Okay. Alright, so these are our little game pockets for the DS. Now we're going to gather up the bottom. It's not wanting to gather. I'm going to knot this side, hopefully, if my knot will work. That work? It worked. Alright, so I knotted that side. I'm going to gather this side. Now we're going to take this, and a DS is just under 5.5 inches wide. So we have to make sure that this bottom part is 5.5 inches wide. So what I'm gonna do is take my ruler. Let's see, can y'all see what I'm doing? I'm gonna take my measuring tape and I am going to mark. Wait, I'm gonna mark my pencil here. Actually marking it closer to 6 inches. So, alright. A DS is about 3 inches in length. So I'm going to decide here how high up I want it. I'm not so worried about the height of it because if it sticks out a little on top, that's fine. Or if it goes down in, that's fine. But this will give me a rough idea of where I want the bottom of the pocket. So, let's see. How far is that from the top? About 4 inches. I'm going to come over here, measure about 4 inches, give myself another mark so I can keep it kind of straight. Okay. I'm going to make the side marks. We'll have them go a little further down too. All right. So now I know kind of where I want my pocket. I don't know if you can see that, it's pretty light. I'm going to sew a little strip like that. I'm not going to sew it all the way to the edge. I'm going to leave that much open so I can sew that to here, and then that'll cause for there to be a little like extra room on the bottom, if that makes sense. I'm going to have a little extra pocket, or it'll cause a little extra gathered area on the bottom to make more width for the DS. So, again, I'm not going to sew all the way to the bottom. Just going to sew a little section up. And I'm going to put a pin right here where I want to stop sewing, so I don't go too far. Okay, so if you can see, I'm just sewing this little part right here. You're adding some entertainment to my background, honey.
You know what would be nice?
What?
Is if it wasn't brighter than the sun in the bedroom while I'm trying to sleep.
I'm almost done. Right, now I'm going to do the same thing to this side. Fold it up a little. Stick a pin in where I want to stop sewing so I don't accidentally go too far. Ow. Poke myself. Okay. So now we have that bunched a little there at the bottom. Now I'm going to pin it back on here and sew it down. Okay, so now I'm going to sew across the bottom right above where I sewed those little notches. Alright, so now we have that sewed down. Now we are going to sew it up the sides, just like the other pockets. Pockets are all going to go on very similarly. Okay, now this looks like it's going to be very open. So before we sew that down, we're going to stick a piece of elastic across the top. So I'm going to unpin it real quick. Grab some of my elastic, cut it about half the length of the pocket, so pocket's about that length. I'm going to cut it about half of that. Okay. And gonna pin it right here. To hold that still. I'm not bringing it all the way to the edge. I'm bringing it just a little bit in from the edge. And when we stretch it, so it should bunch up the pocket pretty well for us. I think that will be good. So I'm gonna start sewing it right here. And I found that it's easier with elastic to sew it a couple little stitches before you start trying to stretch it. Sewing it down. Alright, now that I've got it stitched down a little bit, I'm going to stretch it out here and try to keep it pretty close to the edge of the material. And just sew right down the middle of it, or at least try to. Alright, now when we pin this up, pin up this side. Right. Now you can see how that's actually going to hold something in it instead of just have it fall out. Alright, so let's sew up these sides. Alright, so there is our DS pocket. And I'll show you how it fits. My kids' DS. So it fits in there pretty good, I think. And then the little games fit perfectly inside these little pockets. Can pop it out. Yeah, they should fit in all of them. Yay, perfect. So there you have a DS pocket and pockets for 3 games. Of course, you can use the pockets for anything, but I specifically made this one for this purpose. So, I think that turned out pretty good. Alright, on to the next pocket. The rest of the pockets I've done don't really have specific purposes. They're just pockets you can hold snacks or toys or anything in the car. So the next pocket we will be making is going to be a little red pocket. And I'm going to put a little pocket on the front. This is the polka dot material. So it'll be 2 pockets in one space. So we're going to sew together the red one first. Okay, so we're going to sew up these pockets just like we have all the others. First we're going to start with the red one. Put the right sides together. Sew down the sides. I'm going to do a base stitch on the bottom. I'm going to gather it a little. Okay, so we're gonna lay this on the pocket where we want it, on the red pocket, big one. Put it where we want it, and then we're just gonna sew it down. Now we have it sewn down. I'm gonna flip it up and sew down the sides. So we have one pocket all done. Now we're gonna sew the main pocket onto here. But it's a little too wide, and that's why we gathered it. I'm gonna have it gathered a little so it can hold things a little better. Oh, so did I cut my thread? Doesn't need to be gathered a ton, just a little bit. We're going to do it about even with our book folders. Let's see if we do that. Actually, that makes it too tall. So I actually cut that one a little taller than I needed. Let's see how tall we have these pockets at the bottom. Yeah, we can bring it down a little further. Okay. So I'm actually going to sew it a little below the book pockets. And since I have it so tall, we're going to do what we did with the DS pocket. I'm going to sew about a 1/2 inch of the bottom just to make it more of a pocket at the bottom. So it can hold a little bit more stuff down there. Fold it over, pin it where I want to stop sewing. So we don't want to sew this part because we want to sew that down to the back. So we're just going to sew to the pins. Okay, so you want to pin it far enough down that when you fold it up, it's not all the way on top of this. It's a little, probably about an inch or so below the pocket above it, so that there's room to get into it without messing with the pocket above it. So we want to sew it far enough down that when we fold it up, it's not going to interfere with the top pocket. So I'm going to sew mine about there, about an inch below the book pockets. Alright, so we have it sewn across, now we can lift it up. Well, I still don't know if I got it sewn quite low enough. That'll be okay. Alright, I'm going to sew down the side. There we have 2 more pockets. And this one's pretty deep. If it wasn't so deep, I might put elastic on it like we did the DS pocket. But it's so deep, things aren't going to fall out of there, so I'm not going to worry about the elastic. But if you want elastic on yours to help things stay in, feel free to put elastic on it just like we did on this pocket. Alright, now we're going to do some pockets across the bottom. So we're going to do them a lot like this pocket. It's going to be one big pocket on the bottom with smaller pockets on top of it. And when I say one big pocket, what I actually mean is I have one strip of material. We're gonna sew on there as a pocket, and then we're gonna sew it down the middle to make it into 2 pockets. So it's actually gonna be 2 pockets, and each pocket will have a pocket on top. So, and I've left plenty of room to gather this one. So we'll be gathering it on the bottom as well. All right, let's start sewing it up. All right, let's see how much room we have on the bottom of this width-wise. Yeah, those should be able to fit fine without needing to gather them. We're just gonna sew them on. Okay, so I'm just gonna sew them onto this pocket about 1 inch apart. All right, so we have them both sewn on at the bottom. We're gonna fold them up and sew them up the sides. Now that we have these pockets all sewn on, and they're a little crooked, as you can tell probably. If you don't want them to be as crooked, you can get out your measuring tape, measure a lot more, pin a lot more. Use something like this or a disappearing ink pen. They're not called disappearing ink pens. You know, the little sewing pens. I've got one around here somewhere. Anyway, you can use a pen, sewing pen to mark your spots, or one of these to mark your spots to make it more exact on where you're sewing. But for something that's going to be hanging on the back seat of a car, on the back of a car seat, for something that's going to be hanging on the back of a car seat and have a ton of toys and snacks or whatever in it, you're not really going to notice that it's crooked, and I think it's great for this. So I'm not super concerned. Now I'm going to gather up my stitch on the bottom. Maybe. There we go. I'm going to gather this up to get it ready to sew down. And I'm also going to sew an elastic on the top of it as soon as I'm done gathering it. Let's see. That's going to be good. I don't know if you can see that, but that's going to be pretty good, gathered about that much. But it's going to be very floppy on top. So, since it's going to be 2 pockets, I'm going to be sewing it down this middle right here. I'm going to put 2 strips of elastic. I'm going to do one for this pocket and one for that pocket. I'm not going to do one continuous one. So I'm going to do just like I did with the DS. I'm going to say it's about that long for one pocket, and I'm going to take about half of that amount. Maybe a little over half. Give it a little extra. Okay, and then this pocket should be approximately the same size, so I'm just going to cut them the same length. All right. All right. I'm gonna pin it down on one side. All right. I'm gonna get 1 or 2 stitches in it to hold it in place before I start stretching. Alright, pull this pin out. Then we're gonna stretch it. Alright, I think that's gonna be really good. I'm very happy with that. Okay, we're gonna do the other side the exact same way. So we have the elastic at the top and the bottom gathered. We just gotta sew it onto the bottom here. Now, when I sew this, I may sew part of the bottom of the pocket, and that's really not a big deal. I did it on my daughter's and it turned out just fine. So if you accidentally sew on top of the pocket on the bottom a little, it's fine. Nothing to worry about. And when I'm done, I will show you why it's nothing to worry about. I'll show you exactly what happens. I don't know if I'm gonna get on his too, so I'll show you on his. Okay, we have those sewn on. Now we're gonna fold them up. And see, I actually went over the bottom of this pocket a little, but that just made that pocket seam go under with the big pocket seam. So it's not a big deal. So now we're just gonna go across the sides, and then when we're done sewing down the sides, I'm just gonna go straight down the middle and sew a seam down the middle to make it 2 pockets. Okay, and we have all of our pockets sewn on. Now we are getting so close to done, but there's a couple more steps we have to do. The first step we're going to do is not this. The next thing we're gonna do, we actually have one more pocket and I forgot. We are gonna sew this onto the back for a giant pocket in the back. So we're gonna flip it over. And we're gonna sew this along the outside. So we're gonna sew that just along the outside there. Now we have this pocket on the back. Did get some holes on this side, but I'm not gonna worry about it because the next step is sewing the bias tape around the outside. And when I put that on, it's all gonna get sewn together. So, and just pin this a lot better when we're putting it on. We'll pin it down a lot better. So that is our next step. Pinning on the bias tape. Okay. So now we're going to put the bias tape around the outside. Open it up. What bias tape is, if you haven't worked with it before, is it's just material that is folded in on itself. So it's just material all folded up nice, so that it makes a nice, neat edge on things. So you just open it up and you put it around what you're gonna sew it on and sew it down. And we're gonna sew it real close to the edge here. So that's what bias tape is, and that's what we're gonna do. So first, let's see, where should we start off? Let's start off on the bottom. Start here on the bottom edge. Okay, so we're gonna start at one corner. And where's the safety pins? So we're gonna pin it real good so that it stays on all the way. As you've probably noticed, I don't pin everything, but bias tape is one that I pin down very well, because it will slide around and come off, and it's so close to the edge of the material. You just don't want that happening. So alright. I'm not liking the way that looks, so I'm going to take my sewing scissors and trim an edge down here. There's just too much material and too much going on. Gonna try to keep it as straight as possible. Alright, I think I cut off the sewing of the big pocket to the back, but that's okay. I'm gonna trim up the sides too, just a little bit. Get off all these frayed edges and all the extra material. Make sure we get it all 4 layers of the material that we're getting in there. That one of them's not longer than the other. My serger is not working right now. If it was, I would probably serge this edge before I put the bias tape on it. So that is an idea for you. So we have that down. We're going to go ahead and sew it. And we're going to stay real close to the edge over here. All right. So here we have one side all done. Make sure that it, oh, I picked up all the fuzzies on the back. Make sure it picked up all the material on the back too, though. It looks as though it did. Yeah, it looks good. So it got both, all layers of material here on the back, which is good. So that is one side all edged and done. Now we're going to do another side. We'll do this bottom. And we're only going to do one thing different. And that one thing is right here on this corner where we've already done the one edge. We are going to fold the bias tape down just like a hair, like, what is that, 1/4 of an inch, just so that we have a nice seam on this edge now. So we're going to cover up our raw edge from the other side. We're going to fold this over the top of it with the folded edge. So now we won't have a raw edge poking out, and it will look better. Pin that corner real good. It doesn't want to be pinned real good. It's so thick. There's so many layers. I'm having a hard time getting the pin through them all. Alright. Hopefully that'll hold it. Alright. So that is the only thing we're going to do different. The rest of it, we're just going to do the exact same. And when we get to this side, we'll have another raw edge, but when we go up, we'll do the same thing with this one. We'll fold it in and cover up the raw edge. So, pin it down. Now we're going to do the same thing on this side, and we'll fold the edge in here and cover up the raw edges. And go across this side. And then we'll do the same thing with the top. Just go all the way around. Oh no! So, I was paying attention to the front but not the back. You gotta make sure that doesn't fold in. I just bunched it all up, and that is not okay with me. So, I'm unbunched real quick. Unfortunately, I'm using my pick here for the 3rd time this project. Alright. That one wasn't too bad though. Okay, I'm just going to sew over that one spot again. And this time I'm going to do it from the back so I can see where the problem is. Beautiful. Okay, now across the top. Now on the top, I'm going to fold both sides in because I have both raw edges here, and I need to fold both ends in to make a nice edge. Awesome. Okay. That is all done. So now we have all the pockets done, and we have it looking nice with our nice edge on it. Now all we need to do is sew up our straps that we're going to be hanging it, putting the Velcro on and hanging it from the headrest in the car with. So I have 2 pieces of material here, one for each strap. And what I'm going to do with them is I'm gonna first I'm gonna fold it in half. And then I'm gonna sew along this edge. Okay, now we are going to turn these right side out. And something I like to use to help me do this is a crocheting hook. I don't know if you can see it. I like to take a crocheting hook to help me turn it right side out. So I'll do what I can with my fingers first. I find the crocheting hook comes in handy with something this long, when it's this long. Voila, there's one strap. Okay, so now we have our strips. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna tuck in the bottoms. Bottom and the top. Just gonna tuck them in and sew them down. Alright, so we have our straps all sewn. Now we need to get our Velcro. This, I'm guessing, is about 3/4 inch wide Velcro. I already had it, so I don't have the original wrapping to it or any of the details to it, but it's just Velcro. We are going to cut a strip that's about 3 inches long, probably. I'm giving it at least 3 inches so that we have room to adjust it in the car for the headrest to make it the length we want. And that way, if we move it to a different car, it should still be okay. So I'm cutting approximately 3 inches, I'm guessing. Oh, actually it's almost 4 inches, just shy of 4 inches, so a little longer than I thought it was. Obviously, I'm not very good at measurements. Now, I'm just gonna sew like a little rectangle around the outer edges of the Velcro. I'm gonna do that on both strips. Okay, so now we have our 2 strips with the Velcro on them. Now we're going to take our car activity organizer. It's all done. I'm really liking this one. I think it turned out really cute. But we're going to take it and we're going to sew our strips on. Now when we sew these on, we got to make sure we don't sew onto the pockets at all. Got to make sure and watch that. And the second thing we need to watch when we sew them on Sorry, just a minute. I'm going to pin this one into place. Apparently I can't pin and think and talk all at the same time. Okay, the second thing we need to do when we are sewing this on is to make sure that one Velcro strip is up and the other one is face down, so that when it's in the car they can latch on without having to twist the straps. So you just want them facing the opposite ways, the Velcro straps. And this side, we're going to have to really be careful about the pocket because it goes up quite a bit higher. But Let's see, how high did I pin that? About there. That will be good. Okay, so I just eyeballed it, but I took it a few inches in and just about an inch down. I'm not going to sew down here at the bottom, I'm going to sew up here. So I'm going to sew the strip. I'm going to sew just straight across the strip right there. If you want it to be good and firm and secure, maybe you can sew up here and down here. But make sure when you're sewing to reach on this side and pull the pockets down while you're sewing. Just don't want to have to pick out pockets. Okay. And we're gonna flip it over. I don't know, I pinned them on different ways, didn't I? Alright, I'm actually gonna stick my pocket, the machine inside my pocket, so there's no way I'm gonna get this pocket sewn down. That I think is a good idea. And that pocket is big enough to do that. Alright. Uh-oh, I pushed a button on accident and I'm sewing zigzag. Alright. There we go. Back to straight. I'm going to sew back across this all the way. I'm going to sew it on there really good because this is holding the whole thing up. Alright, so there's one strap. I pinned these on this side. We are done! Yay! There we can strap it. There we have our car activity organizer. And the chalk marks on here wipe off very easily. If you don't want to wash it, which I don't want to wash it, I'll probably take just a wet rag and wipe them. So if you used a chalk pencil or anything like that, that's what I would do, is just get a wet rag and wipe them. But there we have it.